Hello, Foresty friends. Hey, you know what's great? Arknights. You know what else is great? Men. And when you mix Arknights and men together, you get something truly special. The amount of male operators in Arknights has always been a bit of a meme, especially in year 1 and year 2 of the game's runtime, being very much dwarfed by the number of women operators. But the game is 7 years old now, which means my bones will turn into dust from old age, and it also means that there's a good number of men in Arknights. And it also now begs the question, who's the best man? The man, in fact. Or at least the man in each Arknights class, of which there are 8 of them. Just as a quick refresher for the people that don't play Arknights but still watch Arknights videos for some godforsaken reason. Vanguards, the boys that help with the setup and DP generation for you to even put your operators to begin with. Guards, the melee DPS boys. Defenders, the tanky boys. Snipers, the range DPS boys. Casters, the range DPS boys, but magic, ooh. Healers, the boys that keep your boys from dying. Supporters, the boys that apply some sort of status buff or debuffs. And specialists, the funky class that kinda just does whatever they want, to be honest. Whether that be pulling, stroking, or killing in cruel and peculiar ways. And my job for this video will be to pick out the best in each class. In my personal opinion. This isn't meant to be objective at all. But first, some ground rules and context so that I don't sound like a complete idiot. 1. I play this game specifically in the male knights niche because it's how I enjoy the game the most, so a lot of my opinions will be coming from that angle. Doesn't mean I will be completely ignoring synergies with women operators, it's just that male knights will be my main way of approaching things. I just don't have a choice, my hands are tied. By myself. I'm also considering how they play both in main content and side content like IS and SSS. No RA. Not until I can figure out how I can restart my run to get a better start. Number 2, I know this should be a given, but the chosen operator will be determined by my own personal subjective view, which is just vibes. It could be that the operator feels really strong to use, or it could be that they just have more sentimental value to me even if I don't put them on squads often. I just think that makes for a much more fun and unpredictable list than how easily can they kill a boss, because then Linar would top all the rankings. And number 3, I'm working with every male operator that has been released globally at the time of me updating this script for the billionth time. Sorry. Insert operator name that will be excluded here. So we good on that? Nice. Starting with the class with the least amount of dudes to the highest. So the thing about male supporters is that there aren't many of them, and I'm not particularly invested in any of them. I mean, Winflet is cute, Stainless's story role was nice to see, Sand Reckoning exists, and Gnosis is a full offensive pause button when you want the enemies to just stop. But I don't know, I'm not really invested in any of them until one particular guy came in. Oh, that's a dog. Bob Bingy? His name is
Bob Bingy?
Bobbing is the entire reason why this list got delayed. I just wanted to include his release date in particular, all for this pupper. This section was going to initially be really boring and my least favorite section, so honestly it's worth it. Bobbing is a 5-star ritualist that primarily supports Burn, an elemental effect that causes a huge chunk of damage and reduces an enemy's resistance to arts attacks when it bursts, which only makes this pick funny because nobody in Male Knights right now synergizes with Burn, with the exception of you, maybe, which is like saying a matchstick synergizes with a flamethrower. So, why do I like him? Funny dog, good name. Little guy. Really cool. No? Okay, fine. Even though he doesn't really have anyone to support in the Male Knight's niche of his burn, he's still fun to use. It's not like it's completely useless. When it bursts, he helps any other arts operator do a bit more damage, and his funky little range on his skill activation is also fun to work around with. Basically, it's a set line on an enemy he's attacking, but sometimes it can go out of his range because Arknight's code is made with hopes and prayers. I like it. But if you let me be even more serious, sir, the thing that made me latch onto Bobbing like a fridge magnet is his story. See, when he was first introduced in CN, I was convinced that he was a yandere character. I'm not kidding, I just saw his conventionally attractive face and his heterochromia that reminded me of Nightmare and thought, this man is fucked up in the head. He will murder people. So imagine my surprise when he's actually not that, but also is that somewhat. Bobbing is a medical employee of Pure Heart Medical, an organization that helps the infected with missions like bringing them away from dangerous situations and treating them. When he was a kid, he was considered gifted in arts, which is the magic in this game, and he enjoyed that for a while until he got into a higher education and his financial status stops him from getting a much more proper catalyst for his arts, which is like a type of magic wand. Not only that, but he then realizes that he's not as gifted as he thought when compared to his richer classmates. Basic burnt-out gifted kid stuff. The other classmates look at him with pity and he hated it, so when his advisor asked him what he wanted to do as a career, Bobbing said he wanted to volunteer to help the infected with the secret motivation of wanting to be looked up to by the infected. His advisor clocks this though and asks him, "Why do you want to become a social worker?" He finds himself at a sudden loss for words. The professor silently gazes at him for a moment, then gently speaks. "Social workers try to push for society to develop, because we believe everyone can change. Everyone deserves a better life, where their background and their past don't hold them back. Just like you and I." And after that, Bobbing still chose to be a social worker, but now he's constantly making sure he doesn't slip into that savior mindset again. Bobbing now works for Pure Heart Medical, which is under the Mainlander Foundation, which is a whole ass shadow government. Don't worry about it. He's got nothing to do with it. And he's so normal about it all. Like his entire thing about having a savior complex was resolved off screen. That's what? You need to understand, the world of Arknights is filled with so many horrors. It's very common for the characters to be at least a little warped from that, even if you're one of the more privileged people from being uninfected and richer. Something will go wrong somewhere. Even if you're upper class, you still have at least a 30% chance of getting your bones turned into jello. It's a surprisingly down-to-earth story about a guy getting into social work. It has this underlying message that getting into good deeds is good even when you have impure intentions, but you still need to confront those intentions in the first place, which is such a quiet, mature narrative that I'm surprised the game was willing to confront and sit with. It made me really like Bobbing for that. That's probably how you would describe Bobbing entirely, quiet and mature. Like he brings out the beanbag chairs in his room for other people to hang out in. His entire personality gimmick is that he doesn't like loud noises. He actually would throw hands at people that want to mistreat others, and he's embarrassed about it. In comparison to everything else going on in Arknights, from his kit to his story, Bobbing is very humble and simple. His story is an aspect of Arknight's capabilities to write these kinds of low-stakes narratives that I really enjoy. It's very charming, and he's a good boy. Making these kinds of lists is always hard because it feels like I have to balance being truthful about my actual opinions and preferences while also having to create some sort of entertaining narrative for you guys to watch. Being a content creator is that type of never-ending hell. Of course, it all depends on what you place importance on. On one hand, I think something being funny is just as important as it being informational. On the other hand, it's hard to just sidestep the facts sometimes. All of this is to say, you may call this pick boring and basic, but you can't call it wrong. What? You expect me to be hipster every step of the way? Come on, even I know when there's an objectively correct answer. Do I even need to explain this one? I feel like everyone loves Lumen, and for good reason. Lumen is a therapist healer, and is known as one of the good welfare 6-star operators. Let me fucking tell ya, Lumen was a game changer for Male Knight since he's such a direct upgrade of the previous healers we had at the time. He didn't just help with survivability by having the healing power of a 6-star. As a therapist medic, he also had some very important utility at the time. Range and status effect healing. Therapist healers have a healing range that covers the entire fucking planet, with the caveat that healing is reduced to 80% in the further ranges. Before you get the module. They also provide status resistance. I also want to point out that Lumen is an A-gear, and A-gear enemies tend to cause status debuffs on operators. I don't have a point with that, I just think that's cute. Being a 6-star, he has 3 skills. One is an auto charge that does AoE healing, the second one is a manual burst that gets rid of status effects, and the third doubles his healing output, removes his status effects like stun or frozen, and only ends when his ammo runs out, which means that if he doesn't lose that skill because nobody's getting stunned or frozen, it's just a state of permanent buffs for him until you manually turn it off. So like, he's a good healer, and he has a lot of variety for how you can play him specifically, and he's free by playing his debut event stages. His flaws are that he's too blue, I guess. 6 out of 10. Lumen isn't perfect. Of course, being a therapist medic means he has the built-in flaw of being easily overwhelmed. However, if you're using one single Lumen for a situation that requires AoE healing, you're bad and you should uninstall the game and delete your account and you're not allowed to play Arknights and Field. There's also something else about Lumen that makes him likable. Something that's important and a bit of an open secret in this community. He's adorable and a good boy. Lumen's story is about being the second generation of A-gear immigrants in Iberia, a country that doesn't like the A-gear because the ocean tried to eat it, don't worry about it. He initially got roped into the wider story because Ulpianus mistook him as a descendant of a great inventor. Now Lumen wants to join in on the fight against the Seaborn because he wants to do good for the world. In Path of Life, Lumen joins the gang to an A-gear city called the Malarium, and it fucks Lumen up a bit that he feels even more unfamiliar among his own race. Lumen realizes that he needs to find out who he is as a person so he can help others and decides to leave the Inquisition he was invited into to join a scholar to travel the world. And it's all so sweet. Lumen's story is about finding out who he is while he's torn between two supposedly conflicting identities. He's too A-gear for Iberia and he's too Iberian for the A-gear. All of this while grappling with the fact that he just wants to help people despite his own skills being mediocre to do much. It's an oddly relatable and average story alongside such a grand event that people find appealing, me included. I really like Lumen, really. He's cute, he's nice, he has a good role within the story, and he just makes me smile. Every piece of Lumen fan work fills me with joy, and I like looking at him. Not to mention, his design is so goddamn peak. The blue and yellow is so delicious, I want to bite my screen. Look at him! How can you say no to him? Anyways, Lumen is the best male meta healer. This is subjective truth, and those that disagree are not allowed to play Arknights and Field. Man, I feel so bad for Vanguards. Don't get me wrong, they're definitely still pillars in Arknight strategy, even to this day, but it feels like they do get pushed to the wayside a bit due to their mostly utility nature. Which is kinda crazy to say, because there is no mechanic in Arknights more tied to the foundation of Arknights gameplay itself than DP generation, especially Male Knights, where the overall power of your roster is cut to like a quarter with double the DP cost. I respect Arknights Vanguards the same way I respect Firemen because of everything they've done for me over the years. When news of a 6-star male Vanguard coming out for free was circling, I was ecstatic. And well... I have given a mainstream answer. I'm now legally allowed to be a hipster and wrong about things. I like the doggos, okay? I've got like 3 of them on this list. Vigil is a tactician Vanguard, meaning he's a ranged operator with a wolf you can place to block enemies on the ground. His wolves have essentially 3 lives and deal more attack when blocking an enemy, but barely have any defense, so blocking enemies is a gamble on whether they can survive. Also, people meme on him for only generating 2 DP on his second skill per attack. His DPS and DP generation isn't as amazing as other 6-stars, and he feels a lot more replaceable even among other tactician Vanguards. But his pros are that... If you're thinking that I'm only adding Vigil here to seem quirky and different, then you're only half correct. Listen, I meme on Vigil alongside the other people, but that's because it's funny and I'm a manipulative person that's good at changing the way I act depending on the social situation. In truth, I've always liked Vigil even before I found out he was hated. Ever since Gnosis' release, I ignored the community's opinions on anything, and I gotta say, it works out for me more often than it doesn't. I could go on a paragraph-long defense of Vigil as an operator, but I'm not that insecure about my pick. Vigil's janky, I accept him for it and like him for it regardless. He's an operator that compromises excelling at one thing in exchange for being a jack of all trades, which is my ideal kind of operator. Also, I just like his story. I went into Il Sirakusano with very low expectations only to be blasted by peak cinema about taking matters into your own hands to fight for change alongside other like-minded people even if it's unlikely. Using the Mafia and Famiglias as a parallel to wolf packs is some genuine fire writing. Instead of just using the Mafia thing as a gimmick because Italy, they explore the consequences of the violence and fear caused by the mob, and Vigil represents the want for Sirakusano to leave that behind by literally rejecting his role as heir of his Famiglia. Vigil is also just fucking funny. I love it when Arknights write sassy emo twinks. I love his arc of realizing what he wants to do to actually help his country improve and finding the determination to actually do it. His whole thing about being very particular about Syracusan cuisine is also not just a meme on Italians, but a genuine showcase of his love for his country. Vigil is an ass, but he too has hopes for the future, and he has the best quote in the entire event for me during the climax, where the characters are negotiating to create a new Syracusa without the Famiglia system. If I gave you Syracusa, Could you guarantee that she would walk a better path and become a better country? I can't guarantee that. But just as you're willing to listen to me here today, if someone else comes along looking to change my ways, I'm willing to sit down and hear him out. Flames! Flames! Just fire! Vigil is fun to play, a great character, and is associated with an event I was not expecting to fall in love with so hard. He deserves this spot, and I'm unapologetic about it. Okay, but just let me have this though. His whole thing is that you need to utilize his wolves the best you can. He does the most amount of damage to enemies being blocked by the wolf, and at max the wolf has 3 lives represented by these floating heads, which actually means you have a guarantee to take 3 one-shots at the expense of block, which can help a lot with stalling bosses and dealing with those enemies that usually one-hit KO you. And look, Vigil's damage isn't bad. You're just too used to 6 stars obliterating the earth if they sneeze at an enemy too hard. Also, his DP generation, even on skill 2, is fine, since it generates DP per attack and you're going to be using the wolf to be cleaning the beginning waves of low to mid-range enemies like you're supposed to do with Vanguards, and that is also how you're encouraged to play Vigil by his kit. You're just too used to Myrtle making 10 bajillion DP by sneezing too hard. Weirdly enough, I thought there were less snipers than supporters until I did the count. I think it's just because many of the male snipers have their own little fucked up quirks. It's still ridiculous that it took us, until just last year to get another marksman sniper aside from fucking Arknights. My little personal conspiracy theory is that they thought a marksman sniper was just too normal for the male snipers group. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the 3rd doggo on this list. Flingers are probably one of the more strange subclasses of snipers. Before Grey, there was only Rosmontis, and I vaguely remember that there were discussions about her kit being underwhelming or clunky even back then. They had a higher DP cost than the other snipers, had a slower attack speed, and didn't target aerial enemies. They're snipers that don't attack air units. The only snipers now that Wizardel is here. To all that I say, fuck you. Who needs anti-air? Just have fucking Shalom or Vigil deal with them. Grey's altar came out back when people were still trying to make sense of how they felt about altars in general. Recent controversies certainly didn't help. Unfortunately, this meant I was the only one that cheered when he went from a dinky little 4-star to a dinky little 5-star. Oh, how they grow up so fast. First of all, his kit. His 5-star version borrows from his 4-star skills, where his primary focus is crowd control and slow, with the upgrade being that he now sees all with his improved range. He throws electric orbs onto the ground like it's a Pokemon ball. I didn't come up with that joke, the game makes the reference itself.
I choose you!
I don't care what anybody says, that's precious. I think he's really awesome, especially in integrated strategies. His range and AoE is really helpful, and slow is such an underrated utility. The enemy can't kill you if you make them move 5 milliseconds per hour. Mix that with some artifacts and now you're cooking. He doesn't do crazy damage, especially compared to some operators, but he is very solid and not too bad for the first male alternate operator. I think he's the best flinger by virtue of playing into the strengths of flingers without outright deviating what makes them unique in the first place. His story is quite sweet as well. My summary is going to be significantly shorter than the other sections just because there really isn't much to say. It's essentially a story that showcases his growth from being a child with nothing but a wish and a hope for things to get better to an older guy that is finally able to take matters into his own hands to improve the lives around him, including himself. It's a simple story with no attachment to the large horrors of this land, but it's endearing. It's a narrative that could have only been possible by the altar system in Arknights. There's probably more to Grey's story that I can't quite convey because it's tied to Lone Trail, and I haven't read Lone Trail. I remember so many people asking why Grey got an altar of all characters, but the altars are good precisely because they give a chance for characters like Grey to get the follow-ups for their stories. Grey showed the potential of altar characters, and I think that's something to be appreciated for. Pet the doggo, be nice to him, or I'll kill you. Oh, casters! The main form of burst DPS for male knights, and DP heavy as shit while needing to be set up for their skills as early as possible. Passenger, I love you. But why do you cost 33 DP? Any of them would be a good pick as long as they're not Diamante. Fuck Diamante. Clunky ass motherfucker with the equivalent damage output of a paperclip but gets a pass for being hot and having a genuinely cool skin. Diamante fucked my wife and all my side bitches. I hate. Anyways, I'm actually a bit nervous to give out this entry because I feel like I'm going to need to defend this the most. Oh god, really? This guy? Minimalist is a simple operator to use. One might even say he's rather minimalist? Ow! I just hit myself too hard. He's a caster that deals arts damage, and his first skill lets him do more damage, and his second skill lets him hold charges to do more arts damage. His talent gives him a chance to do more arts damage. Use Minimalist to deal with enemies that are weak to arts damage, and he wins. End scene. People call him boring. I call him ergonomic. What? We're punishing operators for being good at their jobs now? When we finally get an operator whose skills and talents aren't a novel, suddenly he's too simple. You people can never be happy. I'm going to my sister's, don't call me. I don't really know what else to say. He's a simple operator that is a simple answer to a simple problem. Boom, I bring him everywhere I go. People don't really like him because all he does is damage, and doing damage is the most replaceable thing you could do. But hear me out! Please hear me out! My playstyle of Arknights is very filthy, casual core, you know? I don't want to blitz through stages with the power of God, but I'm also not the best at coming up with sweaty strategies. I see every stage as a puzzle box where I have to put shapes into holes, basically. Minimalist is the epitome of this. He killed enemies weak to arts good, put the square into the square hole. He's also essentially a male click for IS2, so I really value that. Bringing Minimalist to a stage feels like bringing duct tape. I'm most likely gonna find an enemy that is weak to arts, so I bring Minimalist in the event that I do. He's comforting in that way. His simplicity feels reassuring. I don't need the bells and whistles of a jackhammer. I can work with duct tape. Also, I just like Minimalist's story on a personal level. Ideal City isn't my favorite event, but I do relate to Minimalist a lot. His story of being an insecure architect who struggles with making connections is a lot more personal in the grand scheme of the event, but it works. His whole thing of struggling to present his art to people and making connections is very undiagnosed of him. He doesn't want to tell people about his art because he feels like his art should speak for itself, which is admirable in its own way, but art is about having a conversation with your audience. In the end, you do need to put yourself out there and make yourself more vulnerable so that your art can truly shine. That's fucking awesome, man. Anyways, I hope Minimalist's boyfriend becomes playable and just does physical damage. That'd be funny. I thought Defenders were going to be a really easy pick for my favorite because if you've been following me on my social media, you'd probably have already guessed who it was. However, after thinking about it for a little bit, I really like all the Defenders we have. I don't think there's any Defender I don't have any strong feelings about. Spot is the male Knights veteran, obviously, but Hung was also important during those times before we had really any male healers. I have a lot of feelings and sentimentality attached to Bison for his kid and the event story he was from. Baseline is just so good and is attached to one of my favorite Arknights event stories. Fucking you. Just you. Look at him. Just banger after banger after banger. Alas, even with all these good choices, it was still way too easy to pick my favorite, if that's any indication how high I put this guy in regard. Hey, so if you thought the joke about Shalom was a hint for something, I'm sorry. I swear I like Shalom, I just like piano recitals over plays more. Journey was introduced in The Lingering Echoes, Arknights' best yaoi event. He's a famous musician that begrudgingly agrees to help mentor Ebenholtz, Prince of BL himself, for a concert and is more like a secondary character for the whole thing. And he's fucking hilarious. Journey is a welfare arts defender and his whole deal is reflecting and tanking arts damage. He does a burst of arts damage over an area on his second skill that scales up depending on how many times he gets attacked. So why do I like Journey? Because he could thank God if he wanted to, and the Lord above knows Journey will. He was a popular pianist, but he came from poverty and was severely ill from everything. Poor and infected. Two things his primary customer base of hoity-toity rich people hated. His only sponsor was Gertrude Schrollo, who he separated from after the event story because she's dead. Because of this, he's motivated with only the best source of all, the desire to improve the state of his community with his music. and spite. There is so much anger you can fit in this German man, anger that originates from the mistreatment he and his fellow sick people have faced because of rich men. In fact, his most popular piece was something he made out of frustration about his friend passing because of oropathy. Kinda ironic that it's the piece that was loved by nobles, huh? It is with this anger that he dares to work for a better future for himself and his fellow people. And my god, does he work, sacrificing his wealth and fame to pay for the sick people of his hometown, sacrificing his life to help stop the remnants of an ancient witch king killing everyone, don't worry about it, researching the connection between musical proficiency and originium arts, because, of course, he also has a firm belief about respecting the life you've been given and doing good with it, especially after, almost dying, which is understandable. He really contrasts Ebenholz in that regard, who at this point feels aimless due to feeling trapped by fate. Czerny continues to bulldoze forward because he's got shit to do, goddammit. He's a very motivated and passionate person, both with his art and just how he views life in general. He's so fucking cool. Him being a pianist is also a bonus. I haven't played in a long while, but I loved it, especially as a kid. Something about the piano is just so awesome. I really wish he could be in Ebenholz's narrative more, since now Ebenholz is taking on the role to rebuild Urtica. I don't care how Fudanchi I sound, I want Czerny, Hibiscus, and Ebenholz to have that conversation, and for me to be a fly on the wall for it. Aside from that, I fucking love Czerny's kit. He can tank really hard, it's kinda ridiculous, and his reflection gameplay is funny. He kills people with nothing but aura. He's a simple operator, but that's part of why I like using him so much. I love him. I hope he doesn't sacrifice himself for a greater cause while I'm not looking. That's supposed to be Ebenholz's job. Man, this one was so tough. Specialists are probably my favorite Arknights classes of all time. There's just so much you can do with them, both on the game developers and the player's end. They're basically the throwaway category for any operator that doesn't neatly fall into the other classes, so there's a lot of weird guys in here. So, how do I pick my favorite in a class with such diversity? Well, there are a few that I really agonized over. Unfortunately, all of that pales in comparison to being a character that appeals to me specifically. To the surprise of absolutely nobody that follows me on anywhere in the past few years, to be honest. You know, sometimes you really can't just get by with sentimentality and nepotism alone. Mr. Nothing was essentially my personality for a good while. If you go onto my old streams, you'll see him just hanging around my VTuber. But why? Well, it was love at first sight. Partly because his looks appeal to me as a man that loves another man with stubble, partly because merchants are already my favorite subclass ever. When I saw him first being shown on the day Who Is Real was teased and his kit got shared around, I loved it. Mr. Nothing is a mercenary specialist, meaning he consumes DP just from staying at the battlefield, because unlike the rest of the schmucks, Mr. Nothing, Jay, Lee, and Swire were smart enough to demand being compensated for their time. What happens if there's no more DP for them to take? They disappear. Just gone. Man, the perks of being in a union, am I right? He's a 5-star, so he has 2 skills. The first one has him being a staller or baiter by having him regenerate health when it's halfway down at the cost of him being able to block enemies. His second skill is buffing himself, with one of the 3 different status effects he has listed. One of them is an increase in dodge and block, the other causes a decrease in enemy attack speed, and another with an increase in attack speed. Now, you might be wondering how you decide which buff Mr. Nothings gets. Here's the fun part. You don't. You have to fish for the specific buff you want by reactivating and deactivating his skill until you get it. That's right, you have to play gacha on this guy. I love it. There's a creator much smarter than me called Vanguard that has videos showcasing how you can truly abuse Mr. Nothing's talent to get infinite stun, but it's not really all about that for me. You need to understand that what I like about Mr. Nothing isn't just his playstyle, but what he represents in regards to Hypergris's tendency to create whatever operator they want. You will play more gacha on the gacha game, and you will like it. His class and kit all adds up to this cheekiness that I adore. He also has my favorite personality out of a lot of the Arknights characters. In the story, he gives off the image of a scammer just ready to sell you some bogus divination as a service and hightail it out of there when you realize how much you spent. His entire character is about running away. His life got ruined when he got framed for murder, and his master had to pay the price for it. The price was suicide. He's been running ever since, but then plot stuff happened, like getting trapped in a painting alongside Cruz and Lava by a fragment of a god, don't worry about it, and it's revealed that he has a genuinely heroic character. Like, he goes from somebody that thinks they should leave a bunch of innocent people to die in a time loop situation to breaking his own leg willingly to protect a few people in his most recent appearance. In that sense, he embodies a certain archetype of Chinese drama hero protag. A protag that gets by not just with strength but with smarts and tricks. The guile hero, the loon with a heart, the lovable rogue. No, I'm not just listing out Reagan's TV tropes page, what are you talking about? The fact that his name is a reference to a Chinese proverb, trigger warning for intonationless Chinese ahead, 子是无有, which literally translates to Master Void and Mr. Nothingness. The proverb originates from a Han Dynasty rhapsody called the Zishufu. It's basically used to refer to something completely fictitious, like calling something a tall tale or pure fiction when you're debating somebody, but like extra fancy because you're referencing an ancient piece of literature, which is just really fitting for Mr. Nothing's character. He wants to be non-existent and relies on flattery and lies to run away. That's my personal reading though, don't kill me. Mr. Nothing just has so many of these small little details that just adds up. There's so much depth to him as a character, and the coolest thing about him is that he exists at all. Only in Arknights would a character with Mr. Nothing's kit and concept exist. That's so cool. He's so cool. And now before I get to the final category of boy, I want to go over some honorable mentions. These are all operators that I wanted to include but didn't because they lost to the winning operator. Consider them second place holders. Starting with Gnosis. Gnosis won initially by a goddamn hair, but then Bobbing came along and hit him with a metal chair. He is admittedly really fun to use because of his previously mentioned offensive pause button. Chestnut! A very unpopular opinion, I know, but I like using his manual skill more than Herald's skills. I have a lot of sentimentality over him because I used to back him when the only healers for Male Knights were Ansel, Hung, and Spot. Sorry, Herald. Chestnut ironically wins by seniority. Courier! Give him Alter, please, Hypergriff. I don't use Courier much anymore, but I still like him. It's just unfortunate that my video on him is the one I've grown to like the least. Don't watch it. Ebenholz! Oh god, this one sucked to cut. Putting Ebenholz as the entry for my favorite caster would have been so easy, but the challenge of justifying my love for Minimalist was just too tempting. Shalom! Oof, this one hurt it. I really did like using Shalom when he was first released. I fell off from him at some point, but I've been enjoying him again because of Act or Die. But yeah, it just feels wrong to not have Churney win. One day Shalom will get that W, but today is not that day. Potter! I love his kit. But his character is kind of meh for me. I've got no emotions for the white man from Sargon. Verdant! Love his character. I play him everywhere, but I'm just not attached to him as I am with Mr. Nothing. It was so close though. Phew, and now that's out of the way, let's move on. So here's the end. More than 20 goddamn cards, but only one may reign supreme. I'm gonna be honest, gang. This one is really hard. If you're any way aware of my channel, you might already have an idea of who it could be that I'm choosing between. But there can only be one spot. I consulted with everyone. My friends and... Well, okay, I really only consulted my one friend that plays Arknights. But still, I had to make a choice though. And eventually, the choice was clear. After thinking about it for days, weeks, and then months, I finally figured it out. This is my final decision. Ha, I'm kidding. I really wanted to add him as the final one. I do love him a lot, but there's another operator that I really wanted on the list too, so... What else could I do? Make them share a spot? Okay, but like, what if actually? Oh no! Flamebringer and Executor are in the same category, but there's only one spot. Whatever will they do? Yeah, surprise, this is my list and I can do whatever I want. Honourable Mention is Lessing, by the way. I love his kit, I love his characterization, his willing stem, but come on, he was never gonna beat these two. You know them, you love them, and if you look at my previous videos, then you're probably sick of me talking about them. Honestly, what can I even say about them at this point that I haven't said in my previous videos? Why don't we just open some of them up to make my life easier? Shipping is fun. Never mind! Flamebringer is a welfare 5-star Dreadnought, while Executor the Ex-Footer is a 6-star Alter Reaper, and on the spectrum of how good an operator is mechanically, these two could not be any further apart from each other. Yeah, no, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Flamebringer is a 1-block guard that is supposed to reward you for keeping him on the field for as long as possible with his second skill, while Executor fucks everyone over and punishes them for daring to exist in his area. Executor is just a DPS guy, which makes him power creepable, and he already has been, but god damn it, I have abandoned the notion of having any sort of honor, so I don't care. Die. I'm blazing through their kits because quite frankly, it's really not their kits that I entirely care about, and everyone knows this. For those that don't know, I've made 1 video dedicated to Flamebringer, 2 to Executor, and 1 for their ship. I love those 2, if that wasn't already made clear. To me, these 2 represent not only the things that made me fall in love with Arknights, but this very specific moment in my life when I fell into the grasp of hyperfixation over this goddamn game. They're both a Sarkaz and a Sancta, each the 2 races that made me fall in love with the game's lore. They both debuted in Operational Intelligence, which was my very first Arknights event. They're both one of the first operators that I've ever read the files for and made me obsessed with reading the other operators' files. They're my very first ship of the game that I latched onto. And most importantly, they're the first operators I ever made Arknights video essays on. I have never made analysis videos prior to that, but I remember just having so much fun while making them. These 2 are the reason I started making Arknights videos and why I keep making Arknights videos. Their respective character lores are so cool, what with Executor's whole thing of learning his and the law's place in the world, and Flamebringer recognizing the Doctor from the Babel days. It all creates characters that are fun for me to think about, and I treasure that. I don't know, man, I just love them. And maybe I don't need to explain fully in depth as to why exactly. I think acknowledging that love is enough for my books. Go, my sons, thrive. And that's it for the video. Thanks so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed. Yippee! This was very fun. This video may have taken me 10 billion years, but I like it. Talking about your favorite characters is fun. You guys should try it too in the comments. What's your favorite character in each class and why? I'm trying to figure out if there's at least one person that likes Diamante out there. Like, subscribe, do all the things YouTubers ask you to do, yada yada yada. I have a Discord server you can join if you're 18 plus and want to get updates on any content because that's the first place I always notify. If you like the art I made, I have commissions open and a Ko-Fi where I post exclusive art on there, and you can claim a cute little chibi if you want it when you get memberships. And plus your name gets to be read out at the end like this. Thank you to Kaiser and J8, I appreciate it. Stay safe my foresty friends.